Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson goes under the prospect spotlight. He's one of the most dynamic and explosive rushers in the 2024 NFL draft class. We're going to talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I am a senior draft analyst. And guys, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, where we bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL Draft 24/7, 365. Man, I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day as we get through this draft season. And yes, we are in April. We are 3 weeks away from the draft, DP. So it is showtime, man. We have to put the spotlights on some of these prospects, and that's exactly what we're doing today. We are highlighting Chop Robinson, right? Is he edge 3? Is he edge 4? Is he edge 5 in a class where we know a lot of teams need edge rushers, right? But it's kind of top heavy. So we're going to go through Chop Robinson, and then we're going to rank our top 5 edge rushers and finish off with what our prospect perfect fits, right? We pick the team, we pick the player and say that this is the best situation for it to be a prosperous situation for both the team and the player. DP, I'm using big words, baby. That means I'm going to be in my bag today. But listen, before we get started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson, truly one of the most explosive and dynamic defenders and athletes in this class, Keith. And watching Chop, you know, a guy that brings so much to the table, right? When you think about, okay, getting after the quarterback, the where does he win? When I watched Chop, and I remember watching the timeline, hearing kind of the conversations and seeing the conversations people had about him, and I'm like, all right, I want to form my own opinion. I want to, really dive into the tape. People said, well, he's not great against the run. People said, well, he doesn't have many pass rush moves. He needs a pass rush. He needs counters and so forth and so on. So I got into the tape and I'm like, this seems to be overblown, because he's not just a speed dip around the edge, just a bendy edge rusher, right? I saw double hand swipes. I saw dip and rip moves. I saw inside counters. I saw different skill sets and maneuvers in his bag, Keith. And for me, a guy that tested at 4.48 in the 40, 154, 10-yard split, 34.5-inch vert, 10.8 in the broad, right? He's just really explosive guy. But kid, I remember you did the deep dive on him. When you look at his game, how do you view him entering the 2024 NFL draft, seeing that we're just a couple weeks out?
Yeah, I think he's, man, and I hate to call him a project, right? Because project, sometimes that means that that they haven't done much. And this is a guy that has been accomplished in college, right? We see what he's done, right? So the project part comes from the development part of the understanding the game of football and other facets that don't directly correlate to just first step explosiveness and getting after the quarterback on one rush plane, right? In the sense of the fact of running straight vertical up the field and then trying to beat the offensive tackle around the edge, right? With Chop Robinson, if I'm sitting there at the back end of round 1, right, I feel really good drafting. If I'm some team like the Baltimore Ravens, right, and I always think about them because they always take swings at guys like the David Ojabos, in the Ode Afways, right, just players like that have high upside and then try to develop them. But I think he is a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think the question marks come against the run game and just his ability to identify certain blocks, right? When you play in the edge rush position and you have a down block, right? So that the offensive tackle, he blocks down, crashes down, right? Tries to block the the defensive lineman next to you, and then understanding that there's going to be a pulling guard to kick out, right? He's a guy, Chop Robinson, that'll run up the field sometime and run himself out of the play, right? Or he would take the blocker on with the wrong shoulder, right, and flush himself out and not give himself a chance to keep the integrity of the defense. So that's why I don't necessarily have him on par with the Jared versus and the Latu, right? Because I think they're a little bit better at that. But if you're talking about just simply from an edge rush position, I think he's high level. I even think of another team, the New Orleans Saints, right? They've tried to find Cam Jordan replacement time and time again, and it just has not worked, whether it's been Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport, right? I think of a team like that also that can take a Chop Robinson and do some things with him. But you love his high motor. He plays with a good amount of recklessness, right? Reckless abandon. And then we've seen that film against Michigan, right? Where you can tell that his speed can give offensive tackles real problems. But I think there are more development aspects that have to be placed to his game, because offensive tackles in the NFL, they're smart enough. Coaching staffs are smart enough to say, hey, if this guy we'll just seal him off, right? Let him run straight up the field. We'll run him right out the play.
No, 100%. And I think production dipped for him this year, and that's what a lot of people had some issues, like with his profile, right? Because it's like, man, he, per Sports Info Solution, SIS, he accounted for 28 pressures, 14 QB hits, 4 sacks. But Keith, he had well over 100 less rush attempts this past season because of the fact that, Penn State's offense wasn't great, right? They were always on the field, because they were always on the field and getting off the field quickly. So the defense was always on the field a lot, having to deal with team like Michigan, right? Michigan didn't throw the ball in the second half.
That's what I was about to say, DP, is that when you have an offense, they don't understand that potentially affects your pass rusher, right? Because if I'm the opposing team's head coach, right, I'm saying, look, this team is capped 17 points offensively, right? So what I'm going to do is go in there, run the football, and we'll find out a way to squeak 21 points and win the game, right? What we're not going to do is drop back 50 times and let Chop Robinson get involved. We're just going to run the football and we'll get out there with a win because this offense is slowed down. Now, what that does is Chop Robinson doesn't have as many rush attempts. And then also is not forcing it. He's not playing with a lead, right? How we always talk about the Dallas Cowboys, how they get up, right? And then you unleash Michael Parsons, you unleash DeMarcus Lawrence, you unleash Dorrance Armstrong, right? This past year, they're never with the lead in that aspect to where now the opposing team is just dropping back first down, second down, third down to try to catch up with Penn State.
No, 100%. When you look at like his his body type, right? 6'3", 254 pounds. He checked in with 32.5-inch arms at the combine. When I think about play styles and guys that you can compare him to, I know, he's like, man, if he can really hit that ceiling, could we get a Von Miller type of guy, right? Well, he has that type of for one, first step explosiveness, hip fluidity to bend. Now, Vaughn could go from an upright standpoint to being on a slanted angle with ease, right? Like it just was, and then walk around the edge like that, walk around the corner and walk around the tackle's shoulders and corner him, right? So he was just a different, Vaughn was just different coming out of Texas A&M. Just barring that he was different. But I think like Harold Landry with the Tennessee Titans, right? Another guy that fit that same kind of mold. I have Bryce Huff, who I don't think he was traded. He was released, and I think the Eagles signed him in free agency. He kind of he has that same type of game to an extent, but I think that Chop has more power to hold up, to play as a 3-4 starting outside backer against the run, especially against tight ends and stuff, because he does a good job playing violently through the chest of tight ends, where I think Bryce Huff has always been more of a DPR, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, DP, do you get any Bruce Irvin out of him? Like did that ever cross your mind? And the reason I'm saying, because Bruce had Bruce had variants as far as production, right? I think he had like a couple like really productive years and then a couple years where it fell off. But I just thought about Bruce Irvin just because I potentially see some of the same things, right? Is that some years this guy may touch 12, 13 sacks, right? And then there may be some years he leaves, he finishes the season with 5 or 6 sacks, and it's going to be obviously situation dependent. But that's the development part that I think we have to see if it's there or not, because even developing counters for Chop Robinson, right, is you want to get the spin move, right? You want to, be able to sell it outside and then be able to go inside, cross over the offensive tackle's face. You want to do things like that. And I think that's the development part to really make him a highly nuanced player. Right now, it's like he's that car, right, with the big engine, you know what I'm saying? And it's just going, right? But then now you just need to be able to put some handling and some steering and, listen, don't hit every curve at 100 miles per hour. Let's slow it down some so that way we can be ready for the next curve, right? I think it's something like that with Chop Robinson, but definitely an exciting prospect. I like him. Like I said, back, you talking about pick 21 on or however you want to look at it, I would definitely really consider him because I think that he, no matter what, he's going to at least get pressure on the quarterback. Now, if he can be your edge runner, be a top 10 edge rusher in the entire NFL, that's going to have to come with, can he develop the nuanced parts of his game? But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. We've talked Chop Robinson, right? Put him under the prospect spot. Like, I think he's a really fun, intriguing prospect, and I'm excited to see where he goes, right? What if he goes to Houston, top of in the second round, and then he pairs up with Will Anderson? That's a dynamic 1-2 punch. But let's talk about our top 5 edge rushers, DP. Let's rank them. Let's talk about it. I don't think we've ever had this conversation. So coming up next, man, we're going to get into who's our top 5 edge rushers in this class.
Buying tickets to your favorite sport events before opening kickoff or opening day is never the easiest task, right? But GameTime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. Guys, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I'm browsing, living in the South Carolina area. The Atlanta Braves are very close to us, and I'm able to browse and see what tickets they have for any up and coming games. Guys, they literally have tickets on the GameTime app for as cheap as $1. So you could take your wife, your spouse, your sibling, your children, whoever you want to take. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Top 5 edge rushers in the 2024 NFL draft class. And where is Chop Robinson going to rank in that? Keith, I'll start. At number 1, I got Jared Verse. At number 2 or 1B, I have Leatu Latu. At number 3, I have Dallas Turner out of Alabama. So Jared Verse from Florida State, Leatu Latu from UCLA, Dallas Turner from Alabama. At number 4, I have Chop Robinson from Penn State that we just finished talking about. And at number 5, this was a little tough because there's a mix of different guys that could go in that 5th spot. I have Braylon Trice out of Washington, who I know didn't test well. I think he dropped away for the combine, still didn't test super explosive, but the tape is the tape. And when you see him playing football and getting after the motor, the hand usage, everything, hand counters, the ability to work around and corner tackles and flatten to the quarterback, it's all there. And I think this is just a really good football player. So again, my list: Florida State's Jared Verse, UCLA's Leatu Latu, Alabama's Dallas Turner, Penn State's Chop Robinson, and Washington's edge rusher Braylon Trice. Keith, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, my list is awfully similar. And that's similar to the point of it's just the position 5 that we have different. But yeah, I have Jared Verse first. I have Leatu Latu. I have Dallas Turner. I have Chop Robinson, and then I go with Darius Robinson. With I think gonna be an interesting talking point because something talking about his RAS scores as far as comparing him to other edge rushers or quote unquote defensive ends, with that primary position. But DP, I want to, the Dallas Turner conversation, I feel like there's certain elements of that conversation of what we just had about Chop Robinson that can be applied to Dallas Turner. Like, I don't know if you within these tiers, I have other tiers, right? Like that's my top 5, right? But I feel like Jared Verse and Leatu Latu are on one tier for me. And then Dallas Turner and Chop Robinson on a second tier, in the sense of the fact of I see the high athletic traits, right? But how we just had with the conversation about Chop is that there's some nuances, some details that I would like to see them work on and be developed on in the NFL. And I think you could have really good edge rushers, right? And I view both of those guys as this. If you remember those teams Denver Broncos teams that won a Super Bowl, right? Where it was DeMarcus Ware on one side and Von Miller, which is crazy, right? A crazy 1-2 punch. But DeMarcus Ware was kind of that heavy, that 265, 270 guy, right? And then Von Miller was, you call him, at LSU, we call him the field linebacker, or you could call him the weak side rusher, right? And I view Dallas Turner and Chop Robinson in that light, right? Where they'd be your weak side edge rusher, just primarily getting after the quarterback, but they can also drop in space, but not necessarily the front side of a run defense, right? And you kind of want to be able to pair that 1-2 together. So I like both of those guys in that spot. But yeah, that's kind of my tiers. And then honestly, let's go to the next conversation. Is that the third tier for me? That's number 5, and number 5 was difficult. You know how we talk about the quarterbacks where it's like the core 4 guys. It's Jaden, JJ, Caleb, and Drake May, and then it drops off to the next tier. I think it's the same exact thing. There's 4 guys, and then it drops off to it's kind of like pick your option, right? Which one do you want? And you went with Braylon Trice. I'd like you to talk about that, and then I'll talk about Darius Robinson.
Yeah, man. Like I said, watching Braylon Trice, like I was impressed with the motor. He had good enough footstep quick. I think at Washington, he was north of 270, 280. Like he was a bigger guy, and I think he tried to slim down for the combine to try and run faster. But yeah, it's like whatever. I don't care about that testing. Like, you know what I mean? I don't care about it in the sense of watching him play at his weight. Like he's quick enough off the ball, but he also showcased good functional strength at the point of attack, understanding how to dislodge and knock down the hands and clear the hands of blockers, right? Get around the corner. Also showing the ability he has a quick spin move as a counter. Whereas like even when he's engaged, like, he tries to throw like a little cross chop around the outside. And if that tackle's hands are underneath like in his rib cage on the inside, he'll quickly spin and counter that. And it's like, that's an innate move because that's more of a, not just a pass rush plan, but it's a feel. Right, where it's like, yep, that first move, you got me. You got me with that first move. You stalled that, but now I got a counter to it, and he worked back inside. There was a rep against USC. Now Caleb, Caleb is Caleb, so he got out of it. But like Caleb is Caleb, so he got out of it. But just like Caleb was holding the ball, there was nobody open. But the left tackle did a good job handling the first and second move of Braylon Trice. But I just love the fact he didn't stop. Like he found a way to get into the backfield and pressure Caleb, and then force Caleb out of the pocket. Caleb's just being that Houdini, elusive, magician, spun out of there instead of getting sacked. Where most guys, they're getting sacked by Braylon Trice in that situation. Keith. So watching him, man, I think, and the guy that I think it was the Texas game where they flipped him to the left side against the right tackle. If I remember correct, was it Texas or was it? Yeah, it was Texas.
I think it was Texas, yeah, because he went. That was when I think that was the one sack that the offensive tackle Christian Jones, that he gave up because the left side is Kelvin Banks, who would probably be a top 10 pick in the 2025 draft. So yeah, so they flipped him to the other side. But yeah, and it was a very clean rep and a clean win by him. I want to ask you real quick. You have a NFL comp that comes to mind when you see him, because just to kind of paint the picture of a floor and a ceiling and a career trajectory that you feel like is good for him.
He reminded me a lot of Bradley Chubb. I think Bradley's a little more dense in his frame, more filled in. Yep. He's a little bit leaner than Bradley. When you look at the arms, I think Bradley's a little bit more muscular, dense guy, but that's who he kind of reminds me of. And I'm like, I wonder how his game evolve in the NFL weight program. You know what I mean? Will he add a little bit more muscle or build on, and stuff like that? But I think he's one of those edge rushers that at worst, he's a 7 sack a year type of guy.
Yeah, I think that's right in the good spot. Like I was thinking at like 7-8 sacks per year, but that's really that's good, right? Like that's solid work. That's a consistent guy, and I think what he's going to provide is consistency, right? And that's the part that we have to figure out as far as like their mental makeup. You know what I'm saying? And if he's a hard worker, he's gonna get after. Then yeah, I think that somewhere in between 7 and 10 sacks is a really good spot. But I think what you get is that it's the ceiling versus the floor, right? Like some of those other guys, we talk about the Chop, we talk about the Dallas Turners, right? Higher ceilings, right? Yeah. But I think Braylon Trice, when you draft him, you know exactly what you're getting, and you're probably going to get that exact production, right? And it's not going to vary much from that. But DP, Darius Robinson, man, just looking at him and then watching the film, right? He's one of those players that, and I have him as my edge, right? But not necessarily an edge rush, I guess defensive end. And then I figure it out from there. But I had to put him there because I think he is a top 5 talent when I look at this class. But he's a guy that I would probably reduce down, right? From time to time, right? And I always talk about what putting players in athletically advantageous situations where they're better than the athlete across from them. And I think reducing him down could help some, but also I don't mind on first downs, him playing, outside the offensive tackle, him lining up as the 5 tech, you know what I'm saying, playing that true defensive end situation. I wouldn't want him as a stand-up edge rusher. So I wouldn't want him in 3-4 outside linebacker schemes, but if you're reducing them inside, doing some different things. So I like him just as flat out as a multiple guy because that speed to power is real. And I think while I wouldn't love him in a situation to consistently win around the edge, I think there are moments where he can win. And then if he can't win around the edge, he is a heavy-handed speed to power guy.
Yeah, I think if he's going to win around the edge, Keith, it's going to be strictly off of the power. There was a rep at the Senior Bowl against Tyler Guyton. You know who athletically we know he's an outstanding athlete, right? Gets out of the block quickly, stuff like that. But when they engage, Darius had a plan. It was like, I'm going to sell this power and I'm going to push-pull you. And he just displaced him, shedded him real quick, and then he's right there to the quarterback, right? Or he push-pull with the rip combo. So that's how he's going to win around the edge, but I think he's going to make his money as like a 3-tech 4-eye in on passing down situations, third downs, where he's lined up, with those 34+ inch arms, that power, that quickness off the ball, head up on these shorter arm guards where, hey, walk that guy down, right? Get that quick pressure in the face of the quarterback. I think that's the spot for him. And one last thing, you brought up tiers, man. We know that the tier 1 of guys, the lay 2 and verse, those are the complete guys. And as you was talking, it just kind of formed in my mind. That tier 2, when you talk about Dallas Turner and Chop, those are my fastball guys, Keith. Like those are the guys that you may not be my number 1 right out the gate, but if I got a legitimate a good guy with you, you're my speed guy. That's that type of guy that just, I want you wide 9, and I want you absolutely pinning your ears back and going and just being that fastball off the edge and cause some havoc in the backfield.
Yep, no, I agree 100%, DP. But let's keep going, man. We are on to what the prospect perfect fit, where we pick the player, we pick the team, and we say y'all need to go ahead and make this happen, man, because this is mutually beneficial. So stay tuned, man, because I'm going with something with the Dallas Cowboys, man. We're gonna feel a positional need. So coming up next, man, prospect perfect fit.
The sports calendar is loaded. And guys, FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on all of the action. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. I want to repeat that. Because right now, new customers get $200 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Guys, that's $200 at your disposal that you can use to bet on the NCAA men or women's tournament, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. All right, all of that you can bet on by using the $200 that you earn if you have a winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being out every day. Is Prospect Perfect Fits. You guys know it's one of our favorite segments to pair that prospect with the perfect fit, that perfect team. Keith, I think we both might be in the same division here. Just 2 separate teams. I'm going Jermaine Burton to the Philadephia Eagles.
Okay.
When you have A.J. Brown, a.k.a. Swole Batman, as they like to call him, then you got Slim Reaper on the opposite side and Devonta Smith. Quez Watkins brought the speed. He just didn't bring any reliability to that situation.
The details.
Where you saw, we both 2 years ago when Jermaine Burton was going to Bama with Bryce, me and you both were like championing that whole situation. Like, man, this could be such a great pairing. It didn't work out that year, but seeing him with Jalen Miller and watching that growth in Nick Saban's offense, absolutely.
which is
catches
so
almost
confusing.
everything.
Like because Bryce was the better thrower, right? And
Correct.
that offense had more rhythm on Bryce, but then he had the more productive year with Jet. I
I
didn't get
can't
it.
really explain it, Keith. Like I don't know. I got no idea what happened there, but just watching him, he kept like one of the. I think he has top 5 hands in this class. Like he catches almost everything thrown to him. Right, he can high point at the catch point. He's very explosive, legitimate speed, and he has that dog in him. Right, aggressive, physical demeanor to his game. I think you put him in that situation where him and Smitty can really just rotate in terms of who's playing Z, who's
Oh yeah.
playing the slot, right? And different things of that nature. Then at the same time, if you feel like, hey, you know what? We want to put, AJ Brown in the slot. I'm not afraid to put either, have Smitty at one flanking them on one side and having Jermaine Burton flanking him on the other side and getting that matchup that you want against a smaller nickel corner, and then trying to force the defense to say, listen, either we're gonna stay in man to man, we're gonna rotate to, hey, we trying to double the slot, or we're gonna drop off into zone because we don't have a counter for this built in because this isn't something we were expecting. Either way, I think having all 3 of those receivers in the same receiving room gives you so much alignment, flexibility, and versatility, man. Plus, I really love Jermaine Burton's game, one of the more underrated receivers in the 2024 NFL draft class. So my perfect fit, let me get Jermaine Burton as wide receiver 3 to those Philadelphia Eagles.
DP, I like that, and I think we consistently talked about the wide receiver 3 position for months now for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And as something that they need to address. And I like that fit a lot. Just like of everything you outlined, right? Like I think that Jermaine is the right type of detailed route runner, and he understands from an instinctual perspective, understands playing the wide receiver position, right? And I think it's a perfect spot for him. That's why perfect fit, right? Is because he doesn't have to come in there and have the haul of being a wide receiver 1 or even a wide receiver 2, right? You come in there as wide receiver 3. Some games you may, be second in receiving yardage or something like that, depending on the matchup, right? But I feel really comfortable with Jermaine Burton drawing everybody's 3rd cornerback, right? If he's drawing people's 3rd cornerback in the NFL, then as the Philadelphia Eagles, you're in a pretty good situation. And then you add on the fact that you still have Saquon Barkley, right? So what are y'all gonna do?
I literally forgot about that, Keith. I'm not gonna lie. It's still new to me. I'm not used to seeing him in that green. I haven't even seen him in the green uniform yet, but him being there, and then the fact of, like, I know Eagles fans are like, man, we don't need to get Xavier Worthy in round 1. I agree, you don't, because you can get Jermaine Burton in round 2, round 3, and then you can address a more pressing need in the round 1 if you're looking for value. So putting him even with Barkley, like how are we defending that? I mean, I'm pretty sure you got a somewhat of a plan here you talking about with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. So the plan to defend this is the Dallas Cowboys have to get better defensively, DP. And listen, my player perfect fit, man, prospect perfect fit, Peyton Wilson to the Dallas Cowboys. I just finished up my final eval on Peyton Wilson. Yes, you have the stats up there: 138 tackles, 23 pressures, and 6 sacks. DP, this is a guy that plays everywhere on the football field, and I don't understand how he's not talked about more. I think, honestly, when you ask my opinion, DP, I think he's one of the best defensive prospects that we have in this draft class.
Talk about it.
The medicals and stuff like that, we can't predict that, right? You can't predict ACLs, you can't predict torn ligaments, you can't predict all of those type of things, right? So I hate to kind of live in that space, but if you're talking about just pound for pound, cut on the film, and a football player that has an impact from sideline to sideline, it is Peyton Wilson, and that's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys need. What they need is this: they need a linebacker that's instinctual, right? A linebacker that makes plays, a linebacker that's high effort, and then you know what else they need? They need a linebacker that loves the game of football more than he loves anything else. And we were at the combine, DP. I stood in front of the podium and I listened to what Peyton Wilson had to say. First time listening to Peyton Wilson. And he just talked about, being a former wrestler. He talked about the stuff that his parents instilled in him as far as just hard work, getting after it. And when I left, I said, you know what? No matter what, I'm drafting that guy, right? Like just however it happens. And the Dallas Cowboys, DP, are in a situation. So I'm not even about to tell you to take him, and then this is how you get the job done. You have to move up, right? The top of the second round. You have to walk out of this draft because you've been so passive, right? And with your free agency, that you have to walk out of the 2024 NFL draft with 3 different starters. You need an interior offensive lineman, you need an offensive tackle, you need a linebacker. So in this draft, you have to find 3 starters. So I don't care if that's pulling, hey, let me trade this 4th rounder that we have to be able to move up to the top of the 2nd. And if you walk out of there with a Jackson Powers Johnson and a Peyton Wilson type situation, then you're in a really good spot moving forward. But I really like Peyton Wilson, DP. I'm just trying to see how high I want to go with him. And I know that the medicals conversation, but I can't predict that, right? And I'm not the team doctor. I'm not the doctor, but I really like this guy as a flat out football player and playmaker. You said 138 tackles and 6 sacks. What is that?
Like, especially at the linebacker position, right? Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Like, you're not supposed to be doing that playing off-ball backer, man. Not just being a tackling machine, but then also getting 6 sacks and let me look at it again. 623 pressures on the quarterback, and you're playing off-ball backer, Keith. And the name that I've seen people try to stay away from with him was Luke Kuechly. And I understand why they try to fight that urge to mention that, because he plays with that same, like, the instincts, the football IQ, but the fieriness, the leadership,
you can't
athleticism.
teach that, you cannot teach what he has, and that's the part that has me buying in. And listen, I've seen
he's my LB1. He's my LB1 talent-wise, but like I said, we don't know about the medicals and stuff. But just the stuff that you can do with him, if he's healthy defensively, why not? Like, why not that be your top linebacker on the board?
Yeah, he put. I almost want to throw him in the category of like a game record, because he does that many different things when you watch, and then when you watch the NC State and you look at the season, and like, even when I was reading off the numbers, I'm like, wait, that was one season? I thought that was career numbers, right? But that was one season of football, DP, that he was all over the field. And then obviously what he had the injuries was that 2021, I believe, in the back. Was it? Yeah, I think it was 2021. So I'm all in on Peyton Wilson. And so, yeah, that's my perfect fit. You went to the Philadephia Eagles. I went to Dallas Cowboys, right? We stayed in the NFC East a little bit. But, man, I think that was both prospects that should be very interesting to see where they go in the NFL draft. With DP, that wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Prospect. Man, I want to say shout out to Everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I forgot to say it at the top of the show. I'm going to say it at the bottom of the show, man. Go ahead, hit the like button. Go ahead and comment. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel with the best NFL draft content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend that this is the go-to source for the #1 NFL draft content. Listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my code, is my guy. We go to war with it every single day. Damian Parson, you can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Listen, come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.